Google Hangouts. And you have an idea of something that you want to work on for today.
Yeah, I actually have a question for you because I know for RedheadReview.com you interview the person that's responsible for Kiss a Ginger Day.
Yes, I did. Derek
And
4D.
and I had a question for you because a couple of months ago we were candidly talking and you were telling me that ginger had some kind of negative connotation, which as someone that's ESL, I always thought ginger was kind of like, there was some kind of affection in it. So I'm trying to see the dissonance between the ginger is a negative term, but a lot of redhead people are embracing the ginger and kiss a ginger day and things like that. So I just like to have your thought about that dissonance, or if you could, kind of tell us what's the difference for you between a ginger and a redhead, and how you perceive it.
Sure, I think that's a really good question. It's something that we've talked about before, and I think definitely out there in the redheaded community, as I call my people, there is a lot of use of the word ginger. And for me, it's not something that I grew up with. And when I was first introduced to the concept of ginger or the word ginger, for me, it was in a negative connotation. And it was during Kick a Ginger Day, which started in 2008. And ginger kind of was a bit of a derogatory term. I lived in the UK for a year, and people used to call me a ginger there. And I really didn't get a sense that it was the greatest thing. I got the sense that it was derogatory, and I felt a little defensive about it. So I think I built up my walls around it. So personally, I don't like to use that word. I prefer redhead or someone with red hair. But we've seen, as a result of Kick a Ginger Day, we've seen Kiss a Ginger Day, which is, of course, what Derek 4G started. And so I think it's a matter of redheads reclaiming the word ginger and making it something positive. So in this case, it totally works for Kiss a Ginger Day because it plays off of Kick a Ginger Day. It's alliteration. It helps with Google searches, I think. And it really does resonate with people out there who may have heard of the first one, Kick a Ginger, Kiss a Ginger. It makes sense. But for me, it's never really been a great word. Like when I think of a ginger, and I remember being teased when I lived in the UK, it's like a fat, freckly, nerdy, redheaded kid. It's the kind of thing that I think all redheads strive to get away from, where being a redhead can be it can be neutral, it can be positive, it can be negative. But for me, ginger just has that negative connotation. That's why I don't like to use it. But I may be in the minority.
It's very interesting because, the first exposure I had to the word ginger, realistically, it's Ginger Spice from the Spice Girl in the 90s. So it was really Ginger Spice is being badass.
Wasn't she Scary Spice? She was both, wasn't she?
No. Scary Spice was Melanie Brown.
You're
Ginger
right.
Spice
I'm sorry.
was Jerry Halliwell. I'm a huge fan of the Spice Girls.
Obviously, I haven't been brushing up on my Spice Girls names. Although I do hear that they're getting back together and Posh Spice is going to join them.
Oh, God. Yeah. I saw the last concert together in Paris, and I saw their first concert back together in Vancouver. And yeah, no, that was terrible.
Wow.
I went to the concert with someone, and after the concert, we're like, this was terrible. And in the morning, you had all the magazine and the press like, oh, that was an amazing concert. And I got a text and like, did we went to the right concert? Because the one we went to was really, really bad. Like, I
think
know.
Nostalgia is a big, powerful force for a lot of people. It can really cloud our vision, right? Like it's like Star Wars, actually. Like, I actually think the new Star Wars movie is really, really good. But for some people, they'd love it no matter what. They just go into it blindly with love in their hearts already. So nostalgia is a powerful force.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry to hear that it was overpowering in a bad Spice Girls concert. But anyway, getting back to Ginger Spice, yeah. So Ginger Spice, yeah, she definitely used it in a powerful way. Ginger Spice, it was positive, it was strong, it was all about girl power back in the day. But that's interesting for you as an ESL person. That was your first introduction to the idea of a ginger. And Jerry Halliwell was definitely, I would say, a positive force for the redheads out there. Although she isn't actually really a redhead. She does dye her hair, but at Redhead Review, we are inclusive. If you want to identify as a redhead, you go right ahead. Nice. I'm not going to stop you. you know? I don't want to get into fights with people about that, you know, because there's so many redheads out there. Christina Hendricks, Emma Stone, they're not real redheads, but we welcome them into our community, of course.
That's so interesting. I thought Christina Hendricks was a real redhead.
Oh, she looks like it, right? She's apparently been dyeing her hair red since the beginning of time.
I thought she was dyeing her hair blonde afterwards.
I think she's done it for some roles. But, you know, I found, just talking to people who I know who are actors and actresses in Vancouver, you will find a lot of people get cast very differently when they go from blonde to red. And they get more interesting roles when they're on the red side. But they also get more villainous roles. So it's interesting how redheads can be typecast. Yeah, I've been talking to a few people, and so they say depending on the type of work that they're going for, they'll go between red and blonde. I think there are a lot of blondes out there, and to be distinctive, you know, red gives you a bit of an edge.
There's Netflix got a brand new show, which I'm guessing is a partnership with CW, where the main character is a redhead.
Which one? What's it called?
The Mortal Instruments Shadowhunters. It's based on a young adults kind of book series, kind of like Twilight, Hunger Games. And they had a movie a few years back, and the movie totally bombed because the market was saturated. So they redone it as a TV series, and I saw the first episode this morning on Netflix, and it was just awesome. I thought it was great.
And do you credit the greatness to the fact that the lead character is a redhead?
Not really, but it was. But it totally I think the redhead part totally works because everyone around her is very, you know, it's kind of like Twilight and Vampire Diaries. So a lot of dark colors and, you know, bleach blonde and dark black hair. So the lead character totally pops compared to the other characters.
Yeah, I could see that. You know what's funny about redheads is that redheads don't. We can wear a lot of color. We can wear bright red. We can wear a lot of jewel tones. But I find from being on TV, my experience is that you've actually got to tone it down a little bit sometimes when you're on television, because your hair is so bright. And we know that when you go onto television, whatever it is that you've got, whatever feature you have is magnifying. So your hair is so freaking bright. You almost do better if you wear something like a neutral color so you're not competing. Because, you know, they say if you're overweight, you'll look more overweight on TV. If you're pale, you're going to look way paler on TV. I know that one from firsthand experience because the lights really wash you out. And so if you've got bright colored hair, your hair looks super, super bright. I mean, depending on filters and everything else. But yeah, like I've had to definitely tone it down when it comes to my outfits. And I've been jealous of other presenters out there when they get to wear, you know, bright red or bright blue or whatever it is, because they've got more, you know, like they've got just darker features and they look better with those colors, where I've got to wear, like, kind of keep it pretty neutral because my hair is a color.
I'm going to be very candid with you. So if I'm offensive, I'm just asking.
If you're offensive, you don't care.
Well, pretty much. But there's no bad or negative things in thoughts. I'm just wondering, do you feel any difference being on camera in the evening or during the day? Like, you know what I mean?
Do you mean
like when it's dark, when it's darker outside, does the camera, does your hair looks less shiny, or as a redhead?
Well, what I find is that if I'm shooting outside and it's nighttime, we obviously need more light. Everybody needs more light, not just redheads. And so what happens is that my skin gets totally washed out and reflective. And then my hair becomes more bright. So my hair is bright, my skin is reflective, and the entire background behind me is totally blown out. Like just dark, 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 because all the light is being caught, you know, in this area. So
interesting.
I mean, you have to have a skilled lighting person, right? Like they need to be able to backlight you and backlight have your background lit up and everything. But, you know, anytime that I would be shooting in like Stanley Park in the evening or something like that, I'm just a glowing figure and there's nothing else around me. That's my experience anyway.
It's very interesting.
Yeah, it's not easy being a redhead on television. Not that I'm looking for any sympathy. It's actually pretty fun. But there are some challenges. You know what's funny is that when I used to be on daily, you know how you have to white balance when you go on TV? So this is
Yeah.
just for people out there who don't know. It's for when you're setting the levels on your camera, you use white
Making
as
sure
a
the
basic
colors.
color. Yeah, so it's the base color, so everything else kind of falls into the color spectrum appropriately. They would white balance on a very light blue color for me so that I would have some color in my face because the lights were so bright and I was so pale that they actually had to warm it
Interesting.
up by using a darker color. Isn't that weird? So they actually moved across the spectrum to make me look alive on camera, despite the fact
That's
that I was wearing
very
tons of makeup.
that's very interesting. That's
Yeah.
super interesting to know.
Tricks of the
That's nice
trade.
little tidbits.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've got one last question for you,
Okay.
and I'm just bouncing back on something you said earlier, which, I mean, I'm kind of shocked to know that it was something real, but I always thought Kiko Ginger Day was not, you know, it's something people talk about in social media, but apparently, um, the way you're talking about it, spill on real life, and people really took that seriously, as opposed to, some online trolling.
Yeah. I
Is
mean, it really did happen that way. When it started, I believe it started with it may have even started with South Park, probably as a joke. Like the creators of South Park make fun of everything, right? Like I love them
Yeah.
very much because of that. But there are crazy people in the world, and they took that seriously. And they're like, "Oh, Kick a Ginger Day." Like I don't know if the actual idea of Kick a Ginger happened on South Park, or if they took the idea of making fun of gingers, and they took it offline basically. And there were kids in the UK who actually got beaten up. I mean, when we talked to Derek Forgy the other day, he was saying that he was inspired by a kid in Flin Flon, Manitoba, who had Coke bottle glasses, and I think he was a little bit fat, and people were throwing him in lockers, and that stuff really does happen. And that's the amazing thing, is that in the world of bullying these days, there are two types of bullying that are still kind of sanctioned. One of them is if you're overweight. The other one is if you have red hair. These are the two types of bullying that are still kind of okay in our society. And by okay, I mean they're not okay, but people still have a
Yeah,
stigma
no,
about them, you know? And those are the two types that are out there. And it's really unfortunate. It's not fair to either group, but it is a true thing. It does happen. People have been hurt. People have been emotionally scarred. And it's just as serious as anything else.
so as an overweight person, I'm gonna jump in a little bit on that. Um, so pretty much, redhead people need their own version of Cartman, which kind of showed to a lot of overweight kid how to respond to trolls, and not giving anything about it, and just screw you guys, I'm going home.
I wonder if
That
we do have
attitude.
someone like that, and I just can't think of them offhand. Someone who's just like, screw you, this is who I am, in your face. I don't know if like a Cartman, God, I do love Cartman and I love everything that he's about. But I don't know. Do we already have a Cartman, like a redheaded advocate who's like, screw you, this is who I am? Maybe not yet. Maybe we're gonna find someone, Frenchie.
That would be cool.
I don't
That
know if
would
it's
that would be
me.
great.
I don't know if it's me. I don't know if I want to be compared to Cartman. That was pretty awesome.
That's awesome. That's great.
Cool.
Well, I'm super glad we got a chance to talk, and I got to ask a lot of interesting questions, I hope. And I'm glad if anyone's watching, hope they really appreciate your answer and the time you're spending on this. And I would recommend them to take a look at redditReview.com, because it's a pretty cool website, and follow you on Instagram, because the Reddit Review um, Instagram account, it's so the photography on it is always amazing, and it's always interesting. So just for the composition and the look of it, and the mix of colors, I would recommend anyone who likes design, or something artistic, to take a look at it.
Well, I just wanted to put it out there. I didn't pay you to say that, but thank you, Frenchie.
Wait, you didn't?
I mean, maybe I bought him lunch, but I didn't pay you in money.
No, we've known each other for a long time, but
Oh, thanks. You're a sweetie.
you're always nice, and you always have interesting ideas. So glad I'm here.
Thanks, Frenchie. I'll see you later.